First off, thank you for registering for this morning's class. This is the certification module, training and certification module. So over the next hour, we're going to learn how to set the module up. There's just a couple of setup items we'll cover. We're going to learn how to create training assignments, how to add employees to those assignments. We'll also take a look at a group of reports that you will have available.
All right.
Okay. So we're looking at my test database here. We're going to be working primarily off of the training drop-down menu, but before we get into those items, there's just a few setup items we'll want to take a look at under the administration menu. And what we're going to do here is we're going to create a training job assignment. We're going to create a training shift. And we're also going to create a training overtime code. And I'll talk a little bit more about those in detail. And so beginning with the administration drop-down menu, we're going to select the Job Assignment Center. And we're going to take a look at the screen called Setup Jobs. The Setup Job screen is where all of your assignments are currently listed, whether it's a patrol area or some type of post. You might be using this for zones. That's what I'm using mine for. And I'm also using this to reflect anyone who's on the schedule but is on light duty or who might be working as a field training officer. And so the reason why we're here this morning is to make sure that we have a training job assignment. If you don't have one already, you'll want to make sure that you click on the new button up top, give it the code of train and the description of training. And this is what's going to be used when you have an officer assigned to training during the course of their regular workday. Now, at the bottom over on the right, we'll want to make sure that we omit job from validation. So in the event that you do assign someone to training during the course of their regular work shift, the post will make sure that they're not counting towards any of your minimum staffing requirements. Now, if you were to assign an officer who might be working an 8-hour shift to, let's say, 4 hours of in-service training, then, of course, the system will only remove them from minimum staffing requirements for the period of time that they're training. After you've entered the code, description, and marked the checkbox labeled Omit Job from Validation, you can click on the Save button up top, and the job assignment will be listed over on the left with the others. We're going to move away from the Job Assignment Center, and we're going to take a look at the Schedule Exception Center next, specifically set up overtime codes. As you can see, I already have a training overtime reason, and that's going to be used in the event that I have to schedule someone to a training class on what is their regular day off, the training module will give you the option to auto-generate overtime on behalf of that officer. Now, this does not mean that you have to pay that person time and a half. They might receive training time, hour for hour. And so with that said, right now, would you ever pay someone overtime or give them something extra for attending training on a regular day off?
Yeah, they would get time and a half.
They would get time and a half. Okay, wonderful. So over on the bottom right, you can select what the available pay options are whenever training overtime is used. If it's just straight up 1.5 cash, if they don't have the option to choose comp, then you can just restrict that to only 1.5 cash. Okay. So if you do not have that training overtime code created already, just click on the new button. Enter a code for it. I'm using train for mine. You might choose to use something else, and that's fine unless you just have to make sure you keep that at 5 characters or less. And again, at the bottom, just choose the available pay types. Now, as I said, when you try to assign an officer who's on a regular day off to a training assignment, the system will give you the option to auto-generate the overtime on their behalf. You can actually change that. You don't have to accept that. You can just add them to the training assignment, and you can have the officer submit their own overtime request after the training has been completed. And you may actually prefer that. In the event that you assign someone to training next month and the training class is canceled for some reason, if you chose to auto-assign the overtime, now you have to remember to not only cancel the training day, but also look for and delete the overtime entry associated with it. And we'll take a look at that a bit more closely when we actually start assigning people. Okay, after you have entered your code, description, and available pay codes, click on the Save button, and that overtime entry will be listed along with the others on the left. Okay, let's close out of this screen, and we're going to move away from Schedule Exception Center and move on to Shift Center. We're going to select Setup Shifts, and we're going to create a generic training shift which will be used to place any RDO officers onto the schedule. So if I'm a day shift officer and you assign me to in-service training, I may remain on the day shift. If, however, I'm on a regular day off and you assign me to a training class, you're going to use this shift to place me under. So when you create your new training shift, just create a code, and this is one of the few codes where you can go above 5 characters. Enter a description, an abbreviation, and you can leave the start and end times set to 24 hours if you'd like, since the actual training assignment will be determined later. the hours, for instance. It might be a 4-hour in-service or an all-day class. But again, this is just going to be used as a generic training shift. You should not have to change any of the settings at the bottom. Just click on the Save button up top. And at this point, we're ready to move on to the training drop-down menu. Before we do so, are there any questions on creating the training job assignment, the training overtime code, or the training shift?
No, straightforward.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll close out, and we're going to move over to the training module. And so this menu is broken down into 4 categories. You have settings, activities. This is where we're going to create the schools and assign employees to schools. You have 5 different reports that you can run, and we'll talk about this maintenance option towards the end. And this has to do with when you reassign someone after you have already assigned them to a training class. This will allow you to reapply the training assignment onto whatever their new schedule is. So we'll take a look at that one towards the end of this morning's class. But for now, we're going to start at the very top under Settings, and we're going to click on Training Rules. Training Rules handles 2 functions. Number 1, it allows you to set the defaults for the overtime entries that will be used if you assign an RDO employee to training. If employee is off duty and you choose to have our system generate the overtime automatically, you will have to select the shift that the overtime will be tied to, which of course is our training shift. You will select the overtime code that should be applied, training. And if there is a default pay type, you can go ahead and choose it. Now, these 3 options are defaults. Anyone who is assigning anyone else to a training class will have the option to change any one of these values. But generally speaking, if an RDO officer is placed on a training assignment, these are the values that will be used to create the overtime for them. Over to the right, under Assignment Color, is the color that will be used whenever you assign a working employee to a training assignment. So very similar to how an officer might appear with a vacation day or a sick day. Those are always color-coded on the schedule. Same would apply here. If you have someone who is working on a day shift and they're training during the whole day or for a portion of the day, not only will they have a training assignment applied next to their name, but they will be displayed in this particular color. Now you can choose any other color. Just click on the button. I may recommend that you choose a color that's slightly different from what you're using for your time off and overtime codes. That way no one mistakes this entry. For instance, right now I'm using red, which works fine for me, but you might be using red for denied days off. So there might be some confusion there. So you may choose to select another color if you would like. After you select the color, just click on the OK button. But for my purposes here, I'll leave that set to red. Once we're done, let's click on the Save button. And after it has confirmed that the save was successful. We will close out. And we're going to move on to the next setup screen, which is called Update Master Schools. A master school is a category for the types of training or qualifications that you'll be entering into the system. I have two examples in here. I have investigations and FTO. So investigations might be just a general term that we use. There might be several different classes that fall under that category. Now, you're going to be able to search for training activity across any master school that you create. So, again, your master school might be a general training category like investigations. You may also choose to use a specific master school like FTO. If there is an FTO class someone is going to attend, and you want to be able to report on that, just create an FTO master school. There's no limit to how many master schools you can have, but every training assignment must have one. So whether you're tracking something specifically like FTO, or there's a group of classes that fall under a general category, just click on the New button, enter the name for the master school, and I'll just create something like firearms. Click Save. And just repeat until you have a fairly extensive list of master schools. A little later on, when we take a look at some of your reporting options, you will see how you can filter your training reports based on these master school categories. Close out of Update Master Schools, and the last item under Settings is called Update Training Categories. We're going to recommend that you keep things simple on this screen. You cannot search for categories, so we like to keep it simple and just use this to determine whether or not a training assignment will be mandated or if it's voluntary or elective. And to create those categories, just click on the New button, enter a 5-character code, like I did for my mandated training, enter a description, and click on the Save button. Okay, we're going to take another look at those master schools and training categories in a moment. When we move on to the activities section, we're going to look at these in slightly out of order. We're going to take a look at Setup Schools. And this is what you're going to use to add all of your training assignments. Not necessarily where you're going to assign to people. These are just the training classes that will be conducted perhaps over the next few months or over the next year. We're going to start with the school name, and I'll just call this one Crash Investigation 1. I'm going to select which master school that class falls under. Next, I'm going to select the date or date range for that particular class. And for this example, I'm going to make it a 1 week course. So it will be from November 7th to November 11th. Below, we're going to enter the times for the class. We're going to select the category. Is this mandatory or voluntary? Did someone sign up for this class? I will choose mandated for my category. And under total hours, I'm going to enter 40. So this is not total hours per day. This is total exposure hours or total training hours. And now the last field that is required before we can save this item is the location. So that might be at the academy. And the rest is optional. However, you may find some of these fields useful. For instance, if there's a cost associated with that training, and that might be information you want to track later on, go ahead and enter the cost. If there's some type of certification involved, go ahead and enter the certification, or at the very least, copy and paste the name of the class into the certification field. If there is a certification involved, select when it expires. So this class is being conducted in November of 2016, so perhaps it expires exactly 1 year after. And under special instructions, you're going to enter any details about the class that the employee might need. For instance, what type of equipment to bring. How do they have to dress for this particular class? What do they have to bring back after they have attended? So anything you include in special instructions will be made available to the officer when they're assigned. We're almost done. We're going to click on Session Days and Mandatory Attendance. Now, because the class I created is a week-long class, I'm going to choose what the actual session days are. And over on the far right, you'll notice a box labeled Each Day is a Different School. I'm going to leave that unmarked for this particular example. By leaving it unmarked, I'm saying this is actually a 5-day course. I cannot assign an officer to an individual day. I can only assign them to the entire week. However, you may have certain types of classes that are repeated over a period of time. You can choose to build those out as far ahead as you would like. Select the session days. And over on the right, select Each Day is a Different School. Again, we're going to leave that unmarked because this is a 5-day course. So we're going to click on the Save button at the very top. And once it has saved, we are now ready to assign someone to that class. To do that, we'll select Assign Employee to a School. And this is a very similar form to the one that we just filled out, but what we're going to do here is we're going to click on Find Schools. We're going to select the crash investigation class that we just created. And we're going to select Update School. Update Schools means that we're going to take this specific course and we're going to assign officers to it or modify the existing class, either the location, the hours, or possibly the dates. After you click on Update School, it will load up the details. Under Session Days and Personnel, you're going to select who you want to assign to that class. I'm going to select just 2 officers. And I'll mark Select and Close. Under Verify, Shift Coverage, and Assign, it's going to show us the current status of each officer you just tried to assign to this class. So 2 officers for 5 days means 10 entries we have to look at. So the system is going to have some default settings applied. You will be able to override those if you wish. For instance, on November 7th, the officer we tried to assign is on the night shift. Now, because it shows the officer working on that training day, the default setting is Set Current Assignment as Training. That means that the officer will remain on the night shift, but they will be placed on a training assignment labeled in red, along with the training details and hours. Same applies on the 8th, but on the 9th and 10th, it sees that the officer is off duty, so it assumes that you want to pay that individual overtime using the default settings we applied earlier. And of course, on the last day of training, that officer was back on the night shift, and so again, it assumes that they're still working their original night shift, but they're simply being put on a training assignment for that day. Now, for a second officer, they both happen to be in the same squads. They're working the same night shift, but I'm going to choose a couple of different options just for this second example. Instead of applying a training assignment on the night shift, I may choose to move that officer out of the night shift and into the training shift we created earlier. So I'll do that for each instance of his work day. So we may use this option if we don't want the patrol night sergeant to even see that officer on their shift. Because even though they're on a training assignment and we've clearly posted their training, if there's any confusion as to whether or not that person's there, you may choose to just remove them completely and place them on that training shift. Now, for our first officer, when it came to the off-duty days, we had the system auto-generate the overtime, which it has not done yet. And I'm gonna continue with that default setting for the first officer, but for the second, I'm going to say don't create the overtime. Just add employee to shift. And the shift that it's referring to is, again, the training shift we created earlier. So when all is said and done, we're assigning 2 officers to the same training assignment, but we're choosing different options. So you can see what it looks like on the schedule and choose what best fits your needs. So up top, once again, the night shift officer will remain on the night shift with a training assignment posted on the schedule and overtime auto-generated on the 2 days that he is on a day off. For the second officer, we are going to move him out of the night shift into the training shift, and instead of auto-generating the overtime, we're simply going to place him on the training shift, and we will ask the officer to submit their own overtime request after the training class is completed. Over to the right, you can choose several notification options. We may want to email the officers letting them know of the training assignment, and they will receive an email with all of the details included in the class that you created. You can request an email response, and you can also print a roster for the training course. So this is a little different from the one up top. Print training assignment notification means you're going to get a report showing 2 officers assigned to 5 days of training. Print roster means it's going to show you everyone else who may have been assigned to that same course at some other time. In other words, someone may have assigned 1 or 2 officers to the same exact class a few days ago. So this is just going to reprint the roster with everyone assigned as soon as you click on the Save button. We'll go with those 3 notification options. And when you click on the Save button, it's going to start auto-generating the overtime for the first officer. So we have an approved overtime entry for this officer using the default overtime reason code. The hours will be based on whatever the times were for the class, of course, and the payment option will be defaulted to 1.5 cash. However, you do have the option to select another pay type. But remember, this is us generating the overtime on behalf of the officer. You'll notice send email to default is checked, so not only is this officer receiving a notification that they're assigned to training, but they're also receiving an email notification that overtime is approved for that day. Let's click on the Apply button. One entry was successfully processed, so we will click OK. And we will close, and there should be one more entry that's generated for overtime. Let's apply that one. That was for November the 10th. And we close out. Next, it's going to show us a roster. These are actually the notifications, so there should be another one here for the other officer. And that you can use if you want to throw it in someone's mailbox. Again, you may choose to just send them an email notification. You don't have to use the document. So now that everyone is assigned to training, we're going to take a look at how those training assignments are posted on the schedule. To do that, I'm just going to make one change to my dashboard. I'm going to click on Edit Dashboard up top, and I'm just going to create a window where I can see that training shift. So you have used this screen when you were creating your active tile dashboards. And for some reason that's not working for me, but no matter. I actually have a should have a training shift here I can place on the schedule. Okay, my apologies. I'm going to add brand new tab. Let's see if that works for us.
You may be stuck because we did an update yesterday and we're getting that same exact error, and it's stopping us from doing a lot of things on the schedule here.
Okay, I'll make sure I reach out to our tech support, and they'll take care of that right away. First time I'm seeing it, actually. Okay. Okay. So let's go to November 7th. And so here we have the training assignment. If I was to go back to the daily schedule, you'll see that the first officer simply has a training assignment, crash investigation from 08 to 1600. Now, for the other days, for the regular day off days, you're going to see that same officer under your training shift along with their overtime reason. So I apologize, I can't show you that based on the problem we're having posting that onto the schedule. However, it is there. It's just like any other training shift, so whether you reassign someone to it or have overtime posted on it, that's where it will appear. But I would recommend still creating a training tile like this on your dashboard. Now, before we move on to some of the reports and a couple of other screens, is there any questions about assigning someone to a training class?
If we have a couple people that are assigned to training every month. It's like the first Wednesday and Thursday of every month all year. Is that something that's fairly easy to do through this?
Yes. What you would need to do is when you set up the school, you can enter that in, maybe that's in-service training. You can select the date range, and I'll just run it till the end of this year. And again, we need the times, the total hours. Since it's every other Wednesday, I'm not exactly sure you would need to set that up. But under location, I guess it's just in-service training or in-house, or not sure where that type of training takes place. When you get to session days and personnel, what you do is you just select the days. So you mentioned this is done on Wednesdays?
Yeah, so first Wednesday and Thursday of the month.
Okay. So, I mean, you can go through the list. You don't have to do every Wednesday and Thursday. just like that. And now over to the right, you're going to select each day is a different school. So each day is its own separate class. If you leave that unmarked, what's going to happen is when you try to assign someone, it's going to assign them to every Tuesday and Wednesday, or whichever 2 days it was, automatically. And you certainly don't want that. I'm sorry, that was Wednesdays and Thursdays?
Correct.
So now that you've saved that, when it comes time to assign them, click on Find Schools. And actually, you know, I didn't even take my own advice here. Each day is a different school, very important. And so you may have noticed that when I tried to do that, it was only allowing me to assign them to all of those classes. Just highlight the individual day you want to assign. Click on Update School. This one for November 9th. Just assign it to whoever it might be. And then continue on to verify shift coverage and assign. So I guess in your situation, they would have been on the schedule because that's sort of built in. Is that sort of just built into their schedule rotations?
Not necessarily. If they were off, then they would get overtime.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, when you are assigning people to schools, or I should say when you're setting up the schools, you should only have to set them up once. Whether it's crash investigations, ALCO tests, whatever it might be. Create the class once. Then use assign employee to a school to create new instances of it. And in other words, if I was assigning someone to a field training officer program here, this one already passed in August 15th. Well, I don't want to have to re-enter the whole class all over again. So just copy the school and then modify the dates. Under session days and personnel, just make sure you have the days marked. Assign your officers. And move on to verify shift coverage and assign. Choose your notification options and click on the Save button up top. And I don't have my day shift loaded up here. Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to put it on there. Any other questions on assigning someone to to a school or class.
Nope, that makes sense.
Okay. We're going to take a look at another screen here under Activities called Update Training Assignments. And we're going to use this to delete or cancel, I should say, any of the training classes. You can hold down your control button to select multiple entries. Now over to the right, once you start getting more training assignments in, you'll be able to sort by any date range, by the squads that the person belongs to, and the master schools that you have created. Otherwise, it just shows you everything over on the right. At the very top, click on Delete Selected, and you're done. I'm going to take a look at a few reports here. The first is the Certification Expiration Report. This will allow you to run a report for any period of time. Perhaps I want to see what certifications are going to expire next year. I can search against any group of employees that I would like, and I can even search for specific master schools. I'll select all for this example. And if you have any certifications that are going to expire, and I thought I had one, perhaps not. It's going to show you the month, the employee, the school, the certification, and the expiration date. Next report is called Reprint School Roster. Select any of the classes or the class that you want to report on. Select Update School and click on the Print button. You also have training activity reports. Select the individuals you'd like to run it for, the period of time, the master schools, and you also have a training cost report. So anytime you've entered a class where there's a dollar amount associated, you'll get what's essentially an activity report just with the cost column. Now, any one of these reports can be printed out, of course. And finally, mark schedule with training information. We're going to use this in cases where you assign an employee to a training class, but then they end up getting reassigned, maybe to another squad. Well, when you reassign someone that way, it overwrites the training activity. So this allows you to reapply it onto the schedule. It's saying, look again, if anyone had been reassigned, make sure you reapply any of those training assignments back onto the schedule. Click on the Apply button, and it might just take a few seconds to save, at which point it will tell you that the process has completed. And again, you should only have to worry about that if you assign somebody to training but then reassign them. And that's it for the training modules. Are there any questions on any of the setup items, assigning people, or running reports?
No, I think I got it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it for us for today. Please remember that we do have help out sessions, so as you're setting this up, if you run into any problems, you can always sign up for those help out sessions like you may have done during the initial build, and we'd be happy to assist you in any way we can.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye-bye.